What if I told you that one of the most modern main battle tanks in Southeast Asia, purchased with absolute confidence by a regional army, could effectively destroy itself in the middle of a mission? It sounds unbelievable. But this is a real story. The VT-4 main battle tank, once presented as the pride of the Royal Thai Army and a symbol of armored modernization in Southeast Asia, suffered a catastrophic failure. Not from an anti-tank missile. Not from a drone strike. But from within. Images circulating online show the 125mm main gun barrel catastrophically fractured, broken apart while the tank was deployed in an operationally demanding situation. Imagine the severity of that moment. At the most critical time, the primary weapon of a frontline combat system turns into useless metal. Not because of the enemy, but because of a material failure. This incident is not merely a crack in steel. It is a crack in confidence. And more importantly, it is a fracture in the defense philosophy of an entire region. How could a frontline combat system, produced by one of the world's top arms exporters, suffer such a fundamental failure? What does this incident reveal about defense procurement strategies, logistical pressures, and the actual role of heavy main battle tanks in tropical and riverine environments? And for other Southeast Asian nations, especially those seeking greater technological self-reliance, what lesson should be learned from a shattered gun barrel? Today, we analyze this story differently. The VT-4 incident occurred at a time when Southeast Asia is accelerating military modernization. Vietnam fields the T-90S/SK, Singapore operates the Leopard 2, and Thailand chose the VT-4 as a cost-effective balance between modern capability and affordability, a popular choice among developing militaries. However, the fractured gun barrel exposed a strategic vulnerability, dependence and uneven quality assurance. According to credible reporting, the failure occurred while the vehicle was deployed in an operational environment, not during storage or routine maintenance. This strongly suggests the failure manifested under extreme firing pressure, when the gun barrel experienced maximum stress from propellant detonation. From a tactical perspective, this is disastrous. In modern warfare, a tank rendered combat ineffective by its own system, before encountering the enemy, represents not only material loss, but also a serious blow to morale and institutional confidence. The incident forces planners to revisit a fundamental question. What is the real role of heavy main battle tanks in Southeast Asia? Can 50-ton armored platforms truly operate effectively in regions defined by rivers, soft soil, limited bridge capacity, and extreme climate, when they also impose heavy logistical burdens and remain highly vulnerable to low-cost anti-armor technologies? This incident exposes three critical strategic realities. Argument 1, metallurgical failure and quality transparency. A fractured main gun barrel is not a minor mechanical issue, it represents a severe failure in material science and metallurgical process control. A 125mm tank gun must be forged from specialized alloy steel and subjected to extremely precise heat treatment procedures in order to withstand internal pressures measured in thousands of bars. Analysts writing in defense news have noted that such failures are typically associated with serious defects in heat treatment or inadequate quality control during manufacturing. These failures are exceedingly rare in gun barrels produced under long-established Russian or NATO standard processes. This reinforces a critical truth. Defense procurement is not just about buying hardware, it is about buying an entire supply chain. SIPRI assessments have repeatedly highlighted that lower-cost arms contracts often lack transparency in material certification, metallurgy standards, and long-term quality assurance. If that supply chain is inconsistent, latent risks remain embedded in the system. The VT-4 incident serves as a costly reminder. The initial savings of cheaper procurement may be paid for in operational failure, at the worst possible moment. Argument 2, the crisis of heavy armor in high-tech warfare. The VT-4 failure occurred at a time when the battlefield relevance of main battle tanks is already under intense scrutiny. Studies by the Center for Strategic and International Studies show that in recent conflicts, the proportion of tanks neutralized by loitering munitions and top-attack anti-tank guided missiles has increased dramatically. In economic terms, systems costing only a fraction of an MBT's value can now disable or destroy platforms worth millions. The fractured gun barrel is therefore more than a manufacturing defect, it symbolizes the fragility of heavy armor in modern combat. If a tank cannot be fully trusted to survive its own firing cycle, how can it be expected to survive in an era dominated by thermal sensors, precision-guided munitions, and persistent UAV surveillance? Active protection systems are often presented as the solution. But the VT-4 incident demonstrates a harsh reality. no defensive technology can compensate for weaknesses in core manufacturing quality. If the foundation fails, everything above it becomes irrelevant. Argument 3, Logistics and Procurement Philosophy. Analysts writing in Nikkei Asia have observed that Southeast Asian defense planning is increasingly shaped by geography. Rivers, limited bridge load capacities, dense vegetation, and tropical climate impose severe constraints on heavy armor. At over 50 tons, the VT-4 represents a substantial logistical burden. Maintenance, fuel consumption, transportation, and climate-induced wear significantly increase lifetime operational costs. With finite defense budgets, investing in platforms that are heavy, infrastructure-dependent, and maintenance-intensive requires careful reconsideration. Perhaps the most critical limitation is deployability. A 50-ton tank is inherently restricted by roads, bridges, and terrain, directly conflicting with modern doctrines that prioritize rapid mobility and flexible response. So where does Vietnam stand in this strategic landscape? While some regional militaries confront quality risks and supplier dependence, Vietnam has pursued a quieter but highly pragmatic approach, selective modernization combined with technological self-reliance. Vietnam acquired the T-90S/SK not as a wholesale replacement, but as a technological benchmark, a modern reference point. More importantly, Vietnam invested heavily in upgrading its existing T-54/T-55 fleet to the M3 standard. Why? First, mastery of core technologies. Domestic upgrades allow full control over maintenance, repair, and integration, especially systems such as explosive reactive armor and fire control components. This reduces reliance on distant suppliers and mitigates quality uncertainty. Second, terrain compatibility. Upgraded T-54/T-55 platforms remain lighter and more mobile, better suited to Vietnam's infrastructure and operational environment. Third, asymmetric defense logic. Vietnam prioritizes anti-tank guided missiles, coastal defense systems, and layered denial capabilities, focusing on defeating expensive platforms with precise, cost-effective weapons. Vietnamese military doctrine, as reflected in defense publications and official analysis, positions tanks primarily as mobile infantry fire support and strategic defensive assets, not as deep penetration breakthrough tools. This represents a disciplined and environment-appropriate philosophy. The shattered VT-4 gun barrel is a stress test for all small and medium powers. It proves that defense investment is not a competition of size or price, but of reliability and autonomy. In today's environment, a tank must function as a trident. Mobility, precision, self-reliance. Not as a heavy, dependent platform vulnerable to both the enemy and itself. Thailand has paid a high price for this lesson. For Vietnam, the takeaway is clear: caution, domestic capability, and mastery of core technologies form the most durable shield. The crack in the VT-4 gun barrel is, ultimately, a crack in regional confidence in procurement driven by marketing and political incentives rather than battlefield realities and self-reliant capability. So, after examining the VT-4 incident, we gain a deeper perspective on defense strategy and the future role of main battle tanks. What is your view on Vietnam's approach of selective modernization and domestic upgrading compared to Thailand's experience? Are heavy main battle tanks becoming obsolete? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe and enable notifications to continue exploring defense and geopolitics, analyzing the news from a different perspective.
Minh Quan Story International. Not just reporting the news, rethinking it.